My name is Abigail Foster, and I'm watching my stepsister Jessica rip my dead mother's house apart, piece by precious piece. She thinks she owns it all now. The Victorian mansion my mother spent 30 years restoring, the antiques carefully collected over decades, the gardens my mother poured her heart into. But in 3 months, when her renovation is complete and the moving trucks arrive, she's going to learn a very expensive lesson about making assumptions. Let me take you back to where this all began. My mother, Claire Foster, was an architectural historian who specialized in restoring Victorian homes. She bought our house, a rundown 1880s mansion, when I was just a baby. Everyone told her she was crazy to sink her life savings into such a massive project, especially as a single mother. "This house has good bones," she would say, running her hands along the ornate woodwork. "It just needs someone to love it back to life." For 30 years, that's exactly what she did. Every spare penny went into restoration work. Every weekend was spent stripping paint, repairing moldings, or tending to the elaborate gardens. The house became her masterpiece, and she made sure I understood the value of every careful restoration. "Each piece has a story," she would tell me as we worked together. "The key is taking the time to listen to what the house is telling you." Then when I was 15, she married David Parker. He seemed nice enough, a successful businessman with a teenage daughter of his own. Jessica was exactly my age, and at first I was excited about having a sister. That excitement didn't last long. From the beginning, Jessica resented living in our old house. She complained about the antique furniture, whined about the historical paint colors, and mocked my mother's passion for preservation. "This place is a museum," she would sneer. "Normal people live in modern homes." But what really bothered her was how much time my mother spent teaching me about restoration work. While Jessica was out shopping with her friends, Mom and I were researching period-appropriate materials or learning specialized preservation techniques. "Why do you waste time with that stuff?" Jessica would ask me. "It's not like you'll ever need to know it." What she didn't understand was that I wasn't just learning about old houses. I was learning my mother's language of love. Every restored molding, every carefully chosen wallpaper, every period-perfect detail was part of the legacy she was creating. Then 5 years ago, Mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. The disease moved quickly, giving us barely 6 months together before she passed away. During those final months, she spent every moment she could teaching me everything she knew about the house. "Promise me you'll protect it," she whispered during our last conversation. "This house is more than just walls and windows. It's our heart." I promised, not knowing how soon that promise would be tested. David, my stepfather, fell into a deep depression after Mom died. He started drinking heavily and making bad business decisions. 3 months ago, he had a heart attack and passed away, leaving Jessica and me as the only remaining family. That's when Jessica showed her true colors. At David's funeral, while I was still trying to process losing my second parent, Jessica made her announcement. "The house is mine now," she declared to everyone at the reception. "Dad left everything to me. I'm going to finally bring this place into the 21st century." She pulled out a document, Dad's will, leaving her everything he owned. What she didn't know was that Mom had been much smarter than that. You see, during those final months, Mom hadn't just been teaching me about restoration work. She had been carefully preparing for every possibility. The house had never been in Dad's name. Mom had created an ironclad trust to protect it, with very specific conditions about its future ownership. But I didn't tell Jessica that. Not yet. Instead, I watched as she began her modernization project. She hired contractors to rip out the original woodwork, ordered dumpsters for the antique furniture, and started painting over Mom's carefully researched historical colors with modern grays and whites. "This old junk has to go," she said, selling Mom's beloved antiques for a fraction of their value. "Nobody wants to live in a time capsule." Each change felt like a knife in my heart, but I kept quiet. I documented everything, every item she sold, every piece of history she destroyed, every modification she made to the house. I took photos, kept receipts, recorded conversations. Jessica mistook my silence for acceptance. "See? Even you have to admit this looks better," she would say, showing off her modern light fixtures and contemporary furniture. This is how people live now. She spent a fortune on the renovation, draining her savings and taking out loans to fund her vision of a modern luxury home. She posted constant updates on social media, bragging about how she was saving this old house from its outdated past. "Just wait until you see it finished," she told her followers. "This is going to be the most amazing before and after ever." Oh, it would be amazing, all right, just not in the way she thought. I let her continue for 3 months, watching as she poured money into changes that violated every historical preservation covenant Mom had put in place. She was so busy choosing marble countertops and modern appliances that she never bothered to check the actual property records. Finally, moving day arrived. Jessica had planned a big reveal party for her friends, complete with professional photographers to document her transformation of the old house. The moving trucks were just pulling up when I handed her the envelope. "What's this?" she asked, barely glancing at it as she directed the movers. "The real deed to the house," I replied calmly, "along with the terms of Mom's trust." She opened the envelope, her perfectly made-up face transforming from confusion to shock to horror as she read. This can't be right," she stammered. But it was. The documents showed clearly that the house had never been Dad's to leave to anyone. Mom had placed it in a historic preservation trust with me as the trustee. Any changes to the house had to maintain its historical integrity, and Jessica's modernization had violated every single requirement. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew all along and you let me spend all that money?" "Yes," I replied. "Just like you knew how much this house meant to Mom and chose to destroy it anyway." The trust's terms were clear. Any violations of the preservation requirements would result in immediate forfeiture of any claim to the property. Jessica's renovations had not only violated the terms, they had caused hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage that would need to be reversed. "But I spent everything I had," she protested. "I took out loans. I sold all the old furniture." "Yes, you did," I agreed. "You sold Mom's carefully curated antiques for pennies on the dollar. You destroyed irreplaceable historical features. You tried to erase every trace of her from this house." The moving trucks idled in the driveway as Jessica's perfect world crumbled around her. Her friends, arriving for the reveal party, found her sitting on the modern sofa she'd bought to replace Mom's Victorian settee, sobbing as she read through the legal documents. "The trust requires all changes to be reversed," I explained to the stunned group. "The house must be restored to its historical condition, at the expense of whoever violated the terms." "You can't do this," Jessica cried. "Where am I supposed to live? How am I supposed to pay for this?" "You should have thought about that before you started ripping apart a protected historical home," I replied. "Mom spent 30 years restoring this house. You destroyed it in 3 months." The next few weeks were chaos. Jessica's loans came due, but she had no house to show for them. The contractors had to be paid for work that would now have to be undone. The modern fixtures and furniture had to be returned or sold at a loss. I hired historical preservation experts to assess the damage and begin the restoration work. Every piece of original woodwork Jessica had torn out, every antique fixture she had replaced, every historical detail she had painted over would have to be meticulously restored. The cost? Just over $500,000. Jessica tried to fight it in court, but Mom's trust was airtight. The lawyers explained that she had no claim to the house and was legally responsible for reversing the damage she had caused. "Your stepmother was very thorough," her lawyer told her. "She anticipated exactly this kind of situation and protected against it." Jessica had to sell her car, empty her savings, and take out additional loans to pay for the restoration. She moved into a small apartment, her dreams of a luxury home shattered by her own greed and disrespect. "You could have told me," she accused during one of our last conversations. "You let me destroy myself." "No, Jessica. You destroyed yourself," I corrected her. "You chose to disrespect Mom's memory, to erase her life's work without even checking if you had the right to do so. The house just helped reveal who you really are." The restoration took another year. I hired many of the same craftspeople who had worked with Mom over the years, people who understood the soul of this old house and knew how to heal the wounds Jessica had inflicted. Slowly the house began to come back to life. The original woodwork was carefully reconstructed, the historical paint colors restored, the period details lovingly replaced. Each piece we restored felt like bringing back a piece of Mom. I use social media too, but not to brag about modernization. Instead, I documented the historical restoration process, educating people about the importance of preservation and the value of architectural history. The house became a different kind of before and after story, one about respecting the past while preserving it for the future. Look, 5 years have passed since Jessica's failed attempt to claim the house. The restoration is complete and the house is more beautiful than ever. Mom's gardens are blooming again, the antique furniture has been carefully replaced with period-appropriate pieces, and the historical integrity she fought so hard to preserve has been maintained. Jessica occasionally drives by looking at the house she tried to claim. She's still paying off the loans from her failed renovation and the subsequent restoration. Last I heard, she lives in a modern apartment complex. Exactly the kind of place she always wanted. I've turned the house into what Mom always dreamed it could be, a living museum of Victorian architecture and a center for historical preservation education. Architecture students and preservation experts come from around the country to study the restoration techniques Mom pioneered. The library, Mom's favorite room, has become a research center for architectural history. Her books, notes, and restoration journals help teach a new generation about the importance of preserving our architectural heritage. Last week, a young girl visited with her mother during one of our educational tours. As I explained how each piece of the house had been carefully restored, I saw in her eyes the same spark of understanding I had felt when Mom first taught me about historical preservation. "The house tells a story," she said, running her hand along the restored woodwork just as Mom used to do. "Yes," I replied, smiling at the memory. "And sometimes the story is about more than just architecture. Sometimes it's about justice, respect, and the price of greed." In Mom's old study, I keep a small display case. Inside are the documents Jessica received on moving day, the trust papers, the deed, the preservation requirements. Next to them is a photo of Mom standing proudly in front of the house the day she bought it. Every piece has a story. The caption reads, quoting her favorite saying. Below that, I added my own message. And sometimes the story is about making sure the right person gets to tell it. Jessica never apologized for trying to destroy Mom's legacy. She still believes she was entitled to modernize the house, that her vision should have superseded Mom's lifetime of work. But that's okay. Some people never learn the value of preserving the past. The house stands as a testament to Mom's vision, her dedication, and her wisdom in protecting what she loved. Every restored detail, every preserved feature, every careful renovation tells the story of a woman who understood that some things are worth protecting. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about ensuring that what was meant to be preserved remains standing, beautiful and unchanged, while those who tried to destroy it are forced to live with the consequences of their choices.